Hello again. So, this is our third consecutive lecture. So, it's sort of in today's lecture or class, I'm trying to present what I'm presenting some of the key insights to the novel that we're studying, Animal Farm. So, in the previous lecture, we've taken some of the concepts we touched on, the author, why Animal Farm, and all these sort of questions. So in today's, you should have had in your introductory courses in literature some of the literary concepts, types of novels, some of them, or dramas like comedy, or tragedy. And today's I'm trying to explain the type of novel we're dealing with. So it's the fable. It's a fable. The type of it is a fable. What you may ask a question, what does it mean? What's a fable? What the type of novel that we're dealing with? So the fable is one of the oldest literary forms, much older than the novel or the short story. A fable is usually short, written in either verse or prose, and conveys a clear moral or message. The earliest fables still preserved data back to 6th century Greece BCE. The author of these fables, Aesop, used animal characters. So we tell stories through animal characters. That's what the fable is. Its real meaning. To stand for human types. So as in Animal Farm, we used characters to stand for human lives, like what happened in the Russian Revolution. And in this presentation, I'll try to compare between the characters of the novel animals with human beings who've been leaders in or regular people in the French Revolution at that time, as George Orwell depicts his novel. For example, a fox character might embody the human characteristics of cunning and cleverness. Though Aesop's animal fable were ostensibly about animals, they were rarely instructional tales about human emotions and human behavior. So yeah, you may read the novel and you get the characters الممثلين يعني as animals. Still we embody, or their embodiment is like humans. We represent human in the form of animals, and you still can feel the emotions and human behavior. So that's merely what the fable, or what's the fable. Okay, so you understand now what do we mean by fable? Yeah, yeah, good. So in this slide we represent or present, sorry, some of animal fables, types of some of animal or novels that talk about animal, or its type is animal fables. The most popular animal fables of the 20th century are Just So Stories, 1902, written by Rudyard Kipling. Kipling is fables were adapted by Disney in a movie, The Jungle Book, if you've ever heard about it. Orwell admired Kipling. He admired Kipling, the author of this novel, Al-Mufham, and Just So Stories. would seem to have influenced the form of Animal Farm. So the he was influenced by the Just So stories. Orwell took the short animal fable and expanded. So as we said, animal fables is short stories. Orwell just expanded it. He didn't make it just like a short story. It's more into the length of a short novel in the form of an allegory. An allegory. Now we will later in the upcoming slides we will clarify what's an allegorical stories are. Here we come to understand the allegory. What's the allegory? Most fables have two levels of meaning. As in this story, we're going to, while we're reading a novel, when you get to understand the novel, you will try to figure it out, like that has two or more than two levels of meanings. On the surface الظاهر يعني المعنى الظاهر, the fable is about animals, just animals, okay, animal on a farm, and each has a character and has a task and has characteristics خصائص. But on a second level, the second type, that's what the allegory is. The animals stand for types of people or ideas. So that's a fable. That's allegory. The characters are animals, but sometimes we use animals to stand for types of people or try to express ideas through the use of animal characters. The way the animals interact and the way the plot unfolds say something about the nature of people or the value of ideas. Any type of fiction that has multiple levels of meaning in this way is called an allegory. So now we get to know what an allegory is. Any type of fiction that has multiple levels of meaning. As an animal farm has two or more than just one level of meaning. So it has a one level that talks about the farm and different roles of animals on a farm, and a second meaning that each animal representing one character uh, in French or in Russian Revolution as George Orwell depicts it. So an allegory, that's what an allegory is. You see these two pictures. One picture is presenting animals, and the second picture a human being. So allegory, huh? Get to understand what an allegory is. Take care of such concepts in the exam and try to apply these concepts while you're reading your own materials of the novel. So again, allegory, Animal Farm is strongly allegorical, as I said, but presents a very nice balance between levels of meaning. On the first level, the story about the animals is very moving. You can be upset when Baksa is taken away by the horse and slaughter. The horse is slaughtered without being too aware of what he stands for. Yeah, so this while you're reading a story, it will take you emotionally. You will live with it. And actually, the horse or a boxer is representing a human being, or it stands for a human being that took place in the Russian Revolution. Okay, um, but at the same time, each of the animals does serve as a symbol. That's what I'm saying. So it serves as a symbol of one human character. The story's second level involves the careful critique Orwell constructed to comment on Soviet Russia الاتحاد السوفيتي أو الروسي السوفيت الروسي يعني في عهد الاتحاد السوفيتي, where George Orwell is trying to criticize the socialism, the types of classes, and so on. Thank you. This is no allegory depicts what the pigs represent in the story. As you know, it's not necessarily that allegorical should have or must have two very limited levels of meanings. It could have more than just two levels of meaning, yet there is no reason that allegory must be limited to two levels. It's possible to argue that animal form also has a third and more general level of meaning. For instance, the pigs, الخنازير حشاكم أكرمكم الله, need not only represent specific tyrannical Soviet leaders, because you know in the novel the pigs represent tyranny اللي هم tyrannical leaders, الطغاة يعني الطغاة اللي في فترة الاتحاد السوفيتي. Specific tyrannical Soviet leaders, they could also be symbols for tyranny more broadly, because that's maybe their character as tyranny. هم في ذاتهم الحيوان، نوع الحيوان هذا يعني عند الطغاة يعني يكون طاغية، tyranny طاغية. Their qualities are therefore not simply the historical characteristics of actual man, but are the qualities of all leaders who rely on repression and manipulation. All leaders who are tyrannical, or who use power against their people, like what's happening right now around us in the world. There are revolutions everywhere. Why there is a revolution in some states? You know, people think that their leaders are corrupt and they use power against them, you know, without mercy. So that's the representation of pigs in the novel. They represent a tyrannical human being in a Soviet Union or Russian Union. Some parts of a novel that Orwell maps or writes down is satire. What's a satire? What does it mean? What do we mean by satire? In a satire, the writer attacks serious issue by presenting it in ridiculous light or otherwise poking fun at it. Orwell uses satire to expose what he saw as a myth of Soviet socialism, the classes or the social classes at that time. The novel tells a story that people of all ages can understand. So different people can understand the plot or the content of the novel. As you know, this novel is, you know, they offer it actually in high schools outside of Libya, like in Europe and other parts of the world. But it also tells us a second story, what is it, and that of the real life revolution. So yeah, we've mentioned that it has two main allegorical or fables. Has two main levels of meaning. One that everyone can understand, as long as you go through the actions of the novel, you know, you can get it and you can apply it to your daily life. Please, when you try to read the novel, try to think of it that way. When you read something, just try to apply it to our lives or daily lives and political system and routine. You'll see the balance, you know, and that. So it tells the second that of the real life. If you have some background on Russian Revolution, or you might need to search for it, so you get some of the gist in it, you will get to know what the author is aiming at to tell audience, readership. We can see the irony in novel. Irony results when there is a disparity between what an audience would expect and what really happens. So we expect something and something else happens. Orwell uses a particular type of irony. It's a and that type is a dramatic irony. He relies on a difference between what the animal understands, what the animals understand, and what way the audience can conclude about the situation at animal farm. Because sometimes you need to to read the actions of a story while you're reading it. You know, some of the characters, like animal characters, while you're reading the plot, the actions of a story, you may think of what's upcoming or what's happening in the next stages. So yeah, and we know, second, we know just what the animals know, but we can't see so much more of its significance than they can. The conclusions we reach that the animals never quite get to, that the pigs are decent, decent, corrupt, and immoral, okay, are all the more powerful because we arrive at them ourselves without the narrator pointing these things out directly. So you see, you need as readers or as the audience of a novel, we need to reach certain conclusions without the author mentioning them. So that's a hidden information. So we need to look at in order to get it. Okay, why did the author has used an irony or a dramatic irony? Orwell uses a dramatic irony to create a particular subtle satire. Satire stages a critique of an individual, group, or idea by exaggerating faults and revealing hypotheses or hypocrisies. Sorry, nifaq. The dramatic irony of Animal Farm achieves this aim indirectly, so you will find it in the novel. We see the hypocrisy that the animals don't that the animals don't, and for understanding this backward fashion, that the book is deeply critical of the pigs. Yes, so that's the irony Orwell has used in the novel. Read it. Well, now we came to explain the figures in history, and the author has used in literature when history and literature merge, and in the coming slides we may draw some comparison between the real human characters in the Russian Revolution with the animal characters in the novel. Critics often consider Animal Farm to be an allegory of the Russian Revolution. In the early 90s, Russians, Caesar Nicholas II faced an increasingly discontented populace freed from feudal serfdom in 1861. Many Russian peasants were struggling to survive under an oppressive government. By 1917, amidst the tremendous suffering of World War I, a revolution began. In two major battles, the Caesar's government was overthrown and replaced by the Bolshevik leadership of Vladimir Lenin. When Lenin died in 1924, his former colleagues Leon Trotsky, hero of the early revolution, and Joseph Stalin, head of the Communist Party, الحزب الشيوعي يعني, head of the Communist Party, struggled for power. Stalin won the battle and deported Trotsky into permanent exile. يعني نفاه له أمد بعيد. So we will see this story, this real story, in acted through the characters of animals in a novel, where the animals will exile or would run after their owner, Mr. Jones, and later they would there will be a sort of fighting صراعات between the animals for power and things like that. Joseph Stalin. Figures from history. Once in power, Stalin began with despotic urgency and exalted nationalism to move the Soviet Union to modern industrial age.
It's 10 o'clock.
His government seized land in order to create collective farms. Stalin's 5-year plan was an attempt to modernize Soviet industry. Many peasants refused to give up their land, so to counter resistance, Stalin used vicious military tactics. So you see how tyrannical he is. You know, when you say no, you get the massive power against you, vicious military tactics, like many leaders these days with people. Red trials led to executions of an estimated 20 million government officials and ordinary citizens. Wow, and a huge number. So, in order to stay in power, it's okay to kill. That's their perspective, that's their concept. The government controlled the flow and content of information to people. Yes, the government manipulate everything. They don't want you to be free, to think freely. They manipulate media, economy, everything. And all but outlawed churches. And they outlawed the missionary churches. Okay, so that's what the Joseph Stalin has done during the Russian Revolution. On this slide, we start to introduce the characters, the animal characters who stand for human characters. Okay, in order to bring the similarities for you to be able to understand the reading of a novel, like Napoleon equals Joseph Stalin. Napoleon Boer, who leads the rebellion against Farmer Jones. He is the leader or who has led the revolution or the rebellion against Farmer Jones. On the other hand, Joseph Stalin, the communist dictator of the Soviet Union from 1922 1953, who killed all who opposed him. He killed all who opposed, who goes against his concepts and rule. After the rebellion's success, he systematically begins to control all aspects of a farm until he is an undisputed tyrant. Napoleon became a tyrant. Yeah, once he felt he's a real power, or he gained power after the sacking of Farmer Jones, he became really tyrant. On the other hand, Joseph Stalin, he loved power and used the KGB secret police to enforce his ruthless, corrupt antics. So you see how tyrant leaders do. Yeah, they use secretive or secret police to impose their concepts and to make them safe and secure. That's a compromise or a comparison between Napoleon and Joseph Stalin. each plays a similar role in a plot or in their life. Now we're moving into presenting more of characters like Farmer Jones. He's Farmer Jones on the left, and he's playing the role of Caesar Nicholas II, the responsible owner of a farm. He's irresponsible. He forgot to feed his animals. On the other side, weak Russian leader during the early 90s. He's weak. Lets his animals starve and beats him with a whip. He doesn't feed his animals. That's why they sack him. They are rebellion against him. Caesar Nicholas, often cruel and brutal to his subjects or his clients, his people. Subjects means people. He's cruel, قاسي, brutal, butcher, you know. Sometimes shows random kindness. Yeah, he has some sort of kind. He's a Farmer Jones. Displays isolated kindness from time to time, not always. And as a leader, you should have a mercy on people, new subjects. Whenever you lead a group of people, try to learn this from a story. You should be merciful. You can't just show an isolated or an unusual kindness. Be kind all time. Okay, so that's what we can get from these two characters. You know, Caesar and Farmer Jones. Let's turn into this slide and check these two characters who are playing roles in real life and in the story life. Snowball versus O equals Leon Trotsky. Snowball, boy who becomes one of the rebellion's most valuable leaders. He was leading. If you look on the other side, on the right side, Leon Trotsky, a pure communist leader who was influenced by the teachings of Karl Marx. Okay. On the Snowball side, after drawing complicated plans for the construction of a windmill, he is chased off of the farm forever by Napoleon's dogs and thereafter used as a scapegoat for the animals' troubles. Yeah, they sack him, they run after him. You see how he is rewarded. However, he was one major character that led a rebellion against former Farmer Jones. He was rewarded by Nicholas or Napoleon, sorry. On the other side, Leon Trotsky, he wanted to improve life for people of Russia. You see, he has a good intention for people, but they don't want a good people. They don't want good people. Yeah, but was it driven away by Linus KGB, as you will see in the novel. Yeah, as you will see. So you see these two characters, they represent good, but they are not rewarded eventually. You know, so there's a story behind it. You can let's see who is Old Major and Karl Marx, the characters in the novel. Old Major, an old major bore whose speech about the evils perpetrated by humans rouses the animals into rebelling. Yeah. On the right hand, Karl Marx, the inventor or the father of communism, مؤسس الشيوعية أو النظام الشيوعي. Old Major's philosophy concerning the tyranny of man is named animalism. He established their own state and named it as animalism. Old Major, he's the mastermind of all taking place in a farm. On the other side, Marx, or Karl Marx, wants to unite the working class to overthrow the government. He has ideas, concepts, motivates people, the working class, the poor, to overthrow the government, to come against the government, the corrupt government. As you see these days in many different parts of the world. Old Major, he teaches the animals the song Beasts of England. Karl Marx dies before the Russian Revolution. Yeah, he teaches them everything. He shows them a way to do. He teaches them concepts. He established the basics. However, he didn't live up to the moment of the revolution. On the other side, Old Major dies before revolution. Yeah. However, he puts his hand in enlightenment of the people, his companions, animals. You know, he teaches them concepts to go against the spread of human power. He didn't live to see the moments where the other animals rebel against Mr. Jones, the owner of the farm. Okay, so that's how things happen. As our last slide, let's get to know more about Karl Marx. Who's Karl Marx? Many of ideals behind the Soviet Revolution were based on writings and the teachings of Karl Marx. As I said earlier in the previous, he's a father of communism and he teaches a lot. A German intellectual who lived in the mid-18th, Marx believed that societies are divided into two segments, a working class and an owner class, and that's the rich. The working class creates all the products. Yes, the working class who work and who produce and who create and who invent and who does all sorts of things, while the owner class enjoys all the benefits of these products. This class division leads to inequality and oppression of a working class. Marx's objective was to create a classless society. He aims to create a classless society free from classes. يعني مش مجزأ المجتمع، يبي مساواة وعدل ويكونش فيه طبقة العمال والطبقة الراقية هلبة، يعني ما يكونش مقسم المجتمع. In which the work is shared by all for the benefit of all. And he believed revolution was a way to achieve this goal. Oh my God. So you see a picture where he teaches, he preaches concepts of communism, the concepts of working class is in the picture, and you see the number of people who running, flooding towards the government to overthrow the government, because that's the way he thinks people can get their rights. Maybe he's mistaken, maybe he's right. It's you who judge on the consequences of revolutions. But let's, while we're reading a novel, learn something from it. Learn the concepts of Marx and learn what George Orwell is trying to convey, how we can get the best out of it. Thank you for your listening. Work hard, go through the novel, read the slides, listen to me, raise question when you ever don't understand something, because I'll ask you next time. Get the knowledge from slides. Don't underestimate the slides. make notes. I will ask you in everything. Thank you. Stay safe and see you next time.